12:05 in the afternoon. You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard for this Wednesday afternoon. I'm John Harper. Let's get things underway as I introduce to you the host of our program and the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, talking about Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. It's another lovely Wednesday, and here we are. We're gathered around the radio, 90.3 FM, WEJF. It's the lunchtime Wednesday gathering with the Helping Seniors of Brevard radio show. So on behalf of our president and founder, Joe Steckler, let me welcome you to the hour. We're going to be spending some time talking about senior housing and a lot of the issues and things that are surrounding that, and some things that you might be able to do to make sure that you're staying secure housing-wise. So we're going to get into that topic a little bit today. I want to welcome those of you who are listening online at WEJF.net and those who pick this up later as a podcast, because you can find us wherever you get good podcasts. It could be anything from Hey Alexa to Hey Siri, play that for me on iTunes and so forth. So we really appreciate you gathering around the radio for the work of helping seniors. We're the 501c3, fancy word for nonprofit organization that's operated the county's senior information line for now into our 12th year of service, and handling somewhere in the vicinity of 500-600 calls every single month. And Nancy Deardorff, who is our operations director, is going to be joining us on the show today. And we're going to talk about the number one topic that she's been hearing about, which is housing. So we're going to get into that. I wanted to share a little bit with you, though, first, a couple of things. As I mentioned, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, which means we can only go as far as you will help us to do so in fundraising. So there's a couple of fun things that I wanted to share with you. So give you a second to grab a pencil and maybe a notepad so you can jot down a couple of important things, and hopefully you'll consider helping us. The work of helping seniors doesn't happen without your help and your assistance. And so one of the things that I want to talk to you about is the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. That is a big fundraiser that comes up on Saturday, October 7th. And this is going to take place at the American Muscle Car Museum. This is our 7th annual Helping Seniors fundraiser. And what a great way it is. It's a fun way. Joe Steckler, our president and founder, has been friends with AJ Hires of the car dealerships for years and years. And together, back actually when Joe was building the Joe's Clubs for Brevard Alzheimer's, it was really a neat opportunity to raise money in a fun kind of way. And so that's evolved over the years. And this year, once again, in our 7th annual Helping Seniors Car Raffle, 3 things happen when you get a ticket. 1 ticket is $25. 5 is a $100 donation. I'll tell you how to get tickets in a minute, but let me tell you what you get when you get a ticket. Number 1, you're helping support the work of helping seniors. Again, as I said before, the only way we can keep going is when you help us to keep going. But the fun of it really is for you, because you get to pick the winning car if we pull your winning ticket. It's always so much fun. It's such an event. Nancy, you've been at the studios. You've seen at the Muscle Car Museum, you've seen how much fun it is. I mean, there's like 3,000 people all gathered around, and Mark Pylock's wife, Tatiana, reaches in that barrel, pulls out that ticket. And Mark, who is just a fantastic showman by himself, the way he reads out the numbers, it's just an experience.
It is an experience, and it's so much, not only is it so much fun, it's so interesting. And interestingly enough, Mark Pylock has the largest collection, private collection of American muscle cars and other memorabilia in the continental U.S. It is right here in Brevard.
Yeah, and it's one of those great things that we're so blessed to have right in our hometown. I was actually going to say that's the third thing you get when you get your ticket. Number 1, you're helping us. Number 2, you get to pick out a car. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But number 3, you're invited to the party that night. Now, I know there's snowbirds, and they go back and they say, can I still win? The answer is yes. When we pull that winning ticket, it's done. So if your ticket's in that barrel, you got a ticket, we pull your number. If you're back home in Kalamazoo, Michigan, you're still the winner. It doesn't matter. But if you're in town, you don't want to miss the party. But let's talk about the cars for a second, because what's happened over the years is we've decided to pick one car from each of AJ's dealerships to make it fun. And so for a number of years, it's been the two front runners, I would call them, have been the Dodge Challenger and the Chevrolet Camaro. In fact, that's become a whole thing by itself, this Dodge versus Chevy challenge, because some of the folks on our volunteer board of directors kind of lined up with the Dodge, and a couple of others lined up on the Chevy. And so there's actually been this thing called the Dodge versus Chevy challenge, where they kind of trash talk the other cars and then actually go out to Mark Pylock's track and race them around. Nancy, that was a whole experience last year to watch.
Oh, it was so fun. And, we had Team Dodge and Team Chevy both trying to win me over. I said, guys, I got to remain neutral, And this year we have 5 cars instead of just the 4.
Yeah.
And I can just, last year I told them, I said, at the time we had the 4 cars, I said, all 4 are great. Depends on your needs and your wants and what works for you. But boy, were they trying to get me to win me over to one team versus another.
Oh, you know it. Jennifer Barton, who is the owner of Seniors Helping Seniors and a longtime friend of Helping Seniors, she is all about that Dodge. And just as much as Jennifer is all about that Dodge, Ashley Caswell with Rowley IT has been really from day one. She has been all about that Camaro. And actually, if you remember last year, our winner, that's what she took. But then we have another board member, Vicki Moore, and she is all about that Mazda. In fact, she said this year when we go back and do Dodge versus Chevy, she wants it to be Dodge versus Chevy versus Mazda, because she goes, the Mazda is just so much fun. So we'll probably work that in. And there's a couple other cars too, Nancy. Talk about those.
Yeah, this year, in addition to the Dodge and the Chevy and the Mazda, we again bring back the Kia Sportage, which is a 2023 base model. And new this year, we have the 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander.
Yeah, because, AJ's building, you see it when you drive up and down US 1, he's building another dealership. It's AJ. He's really got one of every car that just about that matters. And what a great dealership, warranty forever and all that. And so we really appreciate his friendship and all the people who are in that dealership, because they're kind enough. They let us bring out cars to appearances, and they really support us when we try to get in there and have that big night at the museum. So you got to get a ticket. It's a great, fun way to support the work of Helping Seniors. Again, one ticket is $25, 5 for 100. Folks can call you, Nancy. They can call you and get a ticket.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to get tickets. Like you said, you can go to any of the Boniface Hires dealerships. Mm-hmm. Tickets are available there on site.
Absolutely.
You can give me a holler out at the Helping Seniors information line at 321-473-7770, and I can process a secure credit card transaction. You can go to www.helpingseniorscarraffle.com.
Yes.
And purchase online. And for those of you who you're not sure if you're available, again, you can win the car even if you're not present, but you got to be in it to win it. And it's important to note, Kerry, that since we're a nonprofit, this is not a purchase, it's a donation.
Absolutely.
So for that $25 or that $100 or however many tickets you want to buy, 100% of your donation stays right here in Brevard County to help our seniors right here in Brevard County. None of that money goes outside of the county. And for those of you who are iffy, you really want to be there, but you're not sure or it's too soon, keep in mind, you decide at the last minute, we always have tickets at the door the night of the event.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, and thank you for bringing that up, is we're 100% local charity. People say, well, if I support you guys, where does my money go? We get that a lot of times. I'm a senior. I need help. And we say, well, you need to call the Senior Information Helpline. We were talking about that. You're handling literally record number of calls, and we're going to get into the meat of this. We're going to talk about senior housing in today's program. But, again, I just want to harp for just one more minute that we can't do this without your help. So you getting involved and getting a couple of tickets in the Helping Seniors Car Raffle is a great way to do it. And as I often like to tell people when we meet them out at car shows, you get 5 tickets for $100. You do the math, that's $20 a ticket. You cannot go to dinner and a movie for $20 a person, and here you can just have a great night.
You can barely go to McDonald's for $20.
This is it.
Or $25 for one ticket. In fact, I have to confess, my husband and I usually eat pretty healthy, but when we're on the run, sometimes we have to. We had something to do the other night, and we ended up eating dinner very late, and the only thing that's open is a drive-thru. And we went to a fast food restaurant, and, all we got was a couple of hamburgers, 2 fries, and a soda, and it was a little less than $25, 22 something.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah.
And Mark always is he's such a gracious host. We don't take it for granted, but ever since he's had the museum open, he's offered us the opportunity to come back and be part of having our grand drawing there, and he helps us put the whole thing on, and he is a great MC for pulling the winning ticket, and it's so much fun. You don't want to miss it. Join the like 3,000 or so of us that were there last year, and let's have even more fun this year. So you got to get your tickets. The other thing, real quickly, before we jump in, is I want to mention the other fundraiser that we have going on. People are booking now. It's the Helping Seniors Travel Club. And Chris Morse, another one of the directors in our organization, he's a lifelong travel agent. In fact, he's a senior himself. And in fact, I'm using him, so this is not me making a joke at his expense. But he says, Kerry, I've done travel since dinosaurs roamed the earth. So he's seen and done it all. And not only that, he and his wife, Betty, are special needs certified. So they really enjoy helping people who might think their traveling days are over do so safely and securely because he knows all the things, if there's issues with diabetic supplies or people have mobility issues or maybe they have to have oxygen, supplemental oxygen or different things. He's trained in all of that and is able to make it happen. And so now in October, we have two sailings, October 12th and October 15th, and is the third annual Helping Seniors Travel Club Foundation Cruise. Nancy, you were with us when we all went sailing in the second annual cruise, and it's a lot of fun just traveling with folks from our area.
Listen, I went on 2 cruises as a kid. With my parents. We traveled to Canada to see family, and that's how we chose to travel, and never taken a cruise otherwise. So I decided to go to support Helping Seniors and be part of that whole thing. And I can't tell you how much fun I had. I was never a cruiser. I'm a convert. I'm a cruiser now. I want to do more of it. That's for sure. And it was so much fun. And MSC was just a wonderful company to sail with. The amenities on the ship were wonderful. I was lucky enough to have a balcony cabin. So, but even a non-balcony cabin, there's so much to do. You really don't want to spend too much time in your cabin.
Right.
It was so much fun, Kerry. So much. And again, with the Helping Seniors Travel Foundation, a portion of the proceeds do come back to Helping Seniors.
Yeah, that's the point. It's a fundraiser, but it's also a neat socialization thing because, number one, we make sure the cruises go in and out of Port Canaveral. So you're leaving from your backyards, more or less. I mean, you don't have to get on an airplane and go to get on the ship. You don't even have to take a bus down to Miami or something like that to try to catch a ship. You literally get somebody to drop you off at Port Canaveral, hop on the ship, and the nice thing is you're not traveling by yourself. You're traveling with couple of hundred of your closest friends. In fact, the very first time we did this, I was curious to see how this would work out. And our oldest cruiser was a 93-year-old lady who traveled by herself. Now, you got to think about this. She really wasn't traveling by herself because Chris and Betty are right there to help if anything is coming up, and they know what to do. Number two, she's traveling with all of her friends from right here in Brevard County, so she's part of a group. And the nice thing is you have that support when you want it, but you're absolutely free to go off and enjoy all the different things, whether you go out on shore excursions when we're in port or whether you're just enjoying all the amenities on the ship when we're at sea. And I'm particularly excited about the one coming up in the fall because this is a particularly beautiful MSC ship. I always joke that Italians have a flair for beautiful design. I mean, these are the guys who come up with Ferraris and things like that. So their ships for MSC Cruises, this Italian cruise line, are just gorgeous. And we're going to be sailing on their beautiful seaside, the MSC seaside. And we've got 2 options. If you only have a couple of days to get away, there's a 3-night sailing. And then if you're willing to make it your vacation, you can take a full 7 nights. The 3-night is more or less over a weekend, and the 7 nights is during a week. But a lot of folks just say, hey, I'm on it with you guys. Let's go for the whole 10 days. And what we've discovered, Nancy, you saw this, was how you always make friends when you go on a travel adventure. It's always fun. And most of the time they fly back to where they're from and you're busy with, sharing pictures of grandkids on Facebook. But when we go out from Port Canaveral, you come home and say, let's have lunch next Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah. Cause pretty much, I mean, there are folks that come from out of town, but there's a lot of Brevard County residents that take this cruise.
Yeah.
And so anybody who wants to travel, they don't have a travel partner. They're a little trepidatious.
Right.
You come on board alone, not really, because you got Chris, Betty, and the whole Helping Seniors team.
Right.
But you leave with friends.
Yeah.
You leave with friends.
Absolutely. And one other point that I want to bring in, even though this is a Helping Seniors cruise, that's because it's a fundraiser for us, but I want to make you aware that it is a family cruise, okay? So there's not an age requirement like, I don't want to go cruising because I'm not 93. No, that's not the point. In fact, we were joking because on the cruise we went out this time, our youngest traveler was age 6, and it was actually Lori and Mike Hafer, our entertainers who come with us. It was their granddaughter who came sailing with them. And what a great time we had musically because they're going to be back with us in October. So Lori, I call her Lori, I'd like to teach the world to sing Hafer. She was part of the Hillside Singers that had that worldwide hit. Everybody calls it the Coca-Cola song. I'd like to teach the world to sing. But her and her husband, who's an amazing jazz keyboardist, they come on board and they actually provide entertainment just for our group. And just so you know, in addition to being a recording artist and doing all that, Lori toured the world as the featured singer for Glenn Miller Orchestra, for Tommy Dorsey's orchestra, and also even was toured with Les Brown and the Band of Renown, and in fact was their featured performer at the Les Brown Show in Branson, Missouri. So wonderful singing ability and just a great person to have with us on the cruise. But the other thing I wanted to say, Nancy, before we kind of move off of this topic, was we just got news last night that our son and his wife and I guess he'll be about 1 year old, are going to be coming with us on the 7-night.
How exciting!
On the 7-night cruise. So that made Tammy really happy.
Absolutely.
but it points out that if you have a large family, maybe you're a grandparent and you want to bring your children and grandchildren on board, make it a family event, it's certainly conducive to that. So I want to make it clear that it's everybody is welcome. We just hope you'll make a plan to join us. How do you get information on this? Well, once again, I would call Nancy because she can get you in touch with Chris. And then, or you could go to helpingseniourstravel.com. But Nancy, if they want to give you a call about the Helping Seniors, get some more details on the Helping Seniors Travel Club Foundation Cruise, how do they do that?
Again, give me a holler at 321-473-7770.
Okay. Well, so what we agreed that we want to try to cover today, because Nancy, it's really become like almost your job number one. I feel for you a lot of times when I hear the voicemails come in because people are really hurting in a lot of ways. And so people say, why should I support Helping Seniors? If I go take the cruise or I buy a ticket, why am I doing that? Because you're helping somebody that really desperately needs the help. Now, not everybody who calls is destitute. You can have all the money in the world, still not know where to call or who to call or what to do in a given situation. But a lot of times you're talking with seniors who are really either homeless or on the verge of homelessness. That's really become like the prime call.
Yeah, about 20% of our overall calls are related to housing. And then we further divide those calls on housing into categories. Either they're searching for more affordable housing or they are at risk. They're facing eviction. They've been priced out of the rental market. And then sadly, some seniors who are homeless, either couch surfing with friends, sleeping in their vehicle, and sadly, some seniors who are homeless on the street or in the woods.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've been involved in Helping Seniors even before there was a Helping Seniors, because you go back with Joe to the days where you guys were on the board and helping Joe as he was building those Joe's clubs, and then you were on the board literally from day one as Joe established Helping Seniors and got that rolling. But I don't remember the housing component being quite as serious for many years. I mean, it was usually somebody was calling about, I need transportation, I need some medical help, I need legal advice, or things like that we would get calls about. But now it seems like almost every call, or the majority of calls you're getting, really has transitioned into this about seniors and housing.
It has. And, to people, it seemingly happened overnight.
Yeah.
It took a few years, but it does seem on the surface like, wow, I just woke up one day and suddenly I was priced out of the market. And there's several reasons for that.
Yeah.
COVID has a factor in there.
Yes.
There was a rule where landlords could not kick people out for not paying their rent during COVID. And then when that got lifted, and you can't always blame landlords as the bad guy. There's some bad ones out there, but there's some great ones. So you got a landlord who's got to pay their bills, and suddenly they can't kick anybody out by law out of their home during COVID. COVID sort of passes, although I say that loosely. I think we're stuck with COVID, probably like the regular flu forever. But luckily the crisis has passed. Knock on wood. And so that got lifted. And then what happened is, to make up for lost time, you have landlords that said, okay, now I have to raise the rent to make up for what they lost. We saw an influx, and we're still seeing an influx of people from all over the country moving to Florida in droves.
Right.
And Brevard is a top destination. I always said Brevard County was Florida's best kept secret.
It is. Not so much now.
Not anymore, because people sought out the Miamis of the world, Tampa, Jacksonville. And I used to tell people, where are you from? I'm from Brevard County. Where's that? Melbourne. Where's that? Nobody knew it. Right. And I said, where the space shuttle takes off, way back in the day. And so more and more people are moving here. And so the housing market went nuts. So housing prices went up. So it's very hard for the young couples, young people, as well as seniors to find the finances to purchase a home. But the other factors that have happened is, in addition to rents going up and prices of homes going up, is you've got the problem of, first of all, if you're lucky enough to find homeowners insurance in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to find it, it's just gone through the roof to pay for it. And people just don't have that extra money. Homeowners association fees have gone up, because if you live in a place with a homeowners association, of course, prices for the upkeep of lawn, the pool, whatever kind of amenities your community has gone up. Yeah. Therefore, HOA fees goes up, and taxes, property taxes, have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So it's not just one factor. Food, the cost of food has gone up. Yes, people got a hike in their Social Security, but even if you get an 8% hike in your Social Security, if you just do the simple math, if you're renting a place and your place costs $1,300 to $1,500 to rent a one-bedroom, I'm talking about non-subsidized housing, and you're making $1,300 a month in Social Security, do the math. There's nothing. It's impossible to sustain.
No doubt. We're going to talk about some of the steps we're taking about that on the second half of Helping Seniors. We're talking with Nancy Deardorff, who is one of our favorite people in the whole world, because she's the lady that keeps it all running. She's operations director and longtime helper to everything we're doing in the world of helping seniors. So we'll be back with the second half in just a few moments.
Always good to hear that music as we get the second half of Helping Seniors underway. I'm John Harper. Let's reintroduce the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard, and let's not forget the Executive Director of the organization as well. Here is none other than Kerry Fink.
Oh, thank you, John Harper, and welcome back to the second half of Helping Seniors Radio, right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. We always gather around the radio Wednesday lunchtime hour, and it's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you for tuning in. And also, welcome if you're listening online, WEJF.net, or if you're catching this as a podcast later. Have the privilege of talking with one of the best and most helpful people in the entire world. She is devoted her energies. She's got 33 years registered nurse experience. I mean, you have also administrated one of the largest home health agencies here in our area, not for a day, but for years. And we're fortunate enough that Nancy Deardorff, who has also served on our volunteer board of directors for many years, going back to the day Joe established the organization, was kind enough to actually step down from the directors and come on staff and be operations director and help us try to sort out all the things that we have to sort out every day, most of which happens, it starts and ends kind of with that Helping Seniors information line a lot of times, because that call really ends up being a lifeline to so many seniors, Nancy.
It is. Sometimes I'm the only person they talk to in a day.
Yeah, and I'm not picking at anybody, but a lot of times you'll get the you'll get a phone call where people are calling you out of frustration because they've kind of run down a yellow pages and they're either getting machines or they're not getting, oh, here's a phone number, try that, and they hang up, and that's about it,
Right. We, our goal is to not give out phone numbers for resources for the sake of giving a phone number.
Right.
I call that passing the hot potato.
Yeah.
You call me, I say, oh, here's a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we give phone numbers out to whether it's privately owned businesses, because we have a whole network of providers, senior trusted organizations. So I want to know that the person picks up the phone or you leave a voicemail and they give you a call back. And I always tell my callers, let me know the response you get. Let me know if you don't get an answer. Let me know if no one calls you back, because seniors trust Helping Seniors of Brevard to give them trusted resources for a wide variety of issues. And if that's not happening, we want to know about it. Not to beat up on another organization or a business, but it would give me a chance to reach out to that organization or business and say, hey, we provided you as a resource for a senior and they don't seem to be getting an answer back. Is there something we can do to expedite a phone call back to them to help them? But I'll also say on that note, resources are overwhelmed, Kerry.
Yeah.
Things are so tough right now all across the United States. Whether it's housing or anything else, just the affordable food, everything, that the current existing resources we have, even the free resources that we have here in Brevard County, we have some of the best, but they're overwhelmed. There's only so many people. Everybody only has two hands.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it does take a day or two for an organization to call a caller back.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've run out of funding for those that need funding for rent assist. So it's tough right now.
Yeah, we've always talked about with that expression, it takes a village to raise a child, but it really takes the village to look after our seniors the right way. And I was just thinking, even as you were talking about that, our friends at Aging Matters who do the Meals on Wheels program, they've been pretty desperate about getting more volunteers. They seem like, in their particular case, they seem to be able to get the meals together right now, but need help to get those out.
They need drivers.
Yeah.
And that was severely impacted by COVID. Not all, but many of the volunteer drivers, whether it's, and Aging Matters does so much more than Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
They do a lot of wonderful things. I was talking with someone over there, they saw a sharp decrease in the amount of volunteers that were willing to volunteer, because many of their volunteer workforce were people over the age of 50, in some cases retirees, and they became so afraid of being in a closed space like a car.
Sure.
With someone, or being face-to-face, walking into someone's home, delivering a meal, whatever. People got real scared that they were going to get COVID, and they just haven't fully recovered from that.
Yeah. No, and then like we started the show out talking about is that, I think some of the reasons you're getting all these calls about housing does have to do with the fact that COVID made things really difficult. Like you were explaining, number one, when there was that rent freeze, it made it very tough on the landlords. And I don't automatically assume when a senior calls in that the landlord is being evil to them, because, if you just purchased a property that somebody has rented for 12 years because the person who had it was retiring or moving on or doing something different, you paid a whole different number than that person who had purchased it 12 years ago did.
Absolutely.
And those people have their mortgages, their property taxes, their insurance. So when they say to you, I've got to have this much in rent, it's not a personal issue. It's the economics of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it very pleasant for the people who, and we've talked about this so much. I sit on a group called the Brevard Commission on Aging, and we've talked about this, that, oftentimes there's a temptation to believe that somebody is having a housing problem. Oh, you're not working hard. You're just lazy. You need to go get a job or do something.
Kerry, I'm glad you brought that up. And I get callers that say, I'm so embarrassed because people sometimes feel judged. I've had callers say, people must be looking at me saying, what did I do wrong in my life to end up in this boat? And in some cases, it's they did nothing wrong.
Right. And well, that was to my point. I'm like, somebody who's been, I've been paying $600 a month for 12 years. I have always paid my rent on the first, never been a problem. And all of a sudden now they're telling me I got to pay $1,200, and that's impossible because my Social Security check won't cover it.
Right, exactly. And those are the calls I get all the time.
Yeah.
Now, there's no easy solution.
Right.
And sometimes we have to look at solutions that may be a good solution, but not necessarily one we prefer.
Yeah.
But there are some solutions that we're able to educate seniors on when they call and help them navigate.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that you do, I think you correct me if I'm not saying this right, but I think one of the first recommendations you typically make to somebody is, before we even really carry on the conversation further, make sure you're on the affordable housing wait list, right? Because that, people, I hear the messages come in and say, I need to know about affordable housing. And I'm thinking to myself, you poor soul. That's like 3-year waiting list, right?
Yeah. And there's a couple of different types of affordable housing. Many people have heard of Section 8, which is subsidized housing.
Uh-huh.
It's not necessarily for seniors. It's for families too. Okay. There is no Section 8 vouchers being given out right now by the county.
Right.
It's closed.
Wow.
You can't even apply to get on the wait list.
Wow.
And that's because there is more Section 8 vouchers out there and people needing them than there are Section 8 apartments or places to live.
Wow.
And the solution to that is either building new Section 8 housing, which takes more than a village, or existing landlords that are willing to participate in Section 8, which is they don't have to use all their apartments. If they have apartments with, I'm just going to make this up, 20 apartment units, if they're willing to make 2 of those apartments Section 8, that would help. And we need more owners and landlords to step up to the plate and offer that. What you're referring to with seniors is called Section 202 housing.
Okay.
And to explain that in a nutshell, this is subsidized housing for the elderly. Most people associate it with Trinity Towers down this way.
Right.
We have only a limited number of buildings in our very long county. And these are, I'll name them for you, Westminster Asbury in Cocoa, Trinity Towers, which has 3 buildings, east, west, and south in Melbourne, downtown Melbourne. In the O'Galley section of Melbourne, we have Ascension Manor. And then we have South Lake Towers in Palm Bay. All of them have a 2 to 3 or more wait list.
Wow. And you think we live in a county of 650,000 plus people. It's pretty amazing that that's all that we actually...
We need more. Yeah. We need more Section 202 housing. We don't need any more assisted living. We have plenty. Yeah. And they're expensive.
Well, I was going to say, when you have money, you have a lot of options. We're really on this particular side of it. We're going to talk about the challenges that some that don't. And the senior housing challenge is really kind of like exploded on the scene. It's almost the underbelly of having a great and robust real estate market. Prices go up through the roof, so the taxes go up, the insurance goes up, all that stuff goes up. And even though that, like you were alluding to before, even your Social Security goes up 8% or something like that, well, that doesn't cover $600 to $1,200 rent,
Right.
And so, but I've also see you have to get very creative. There's not like one answer for any given thing. I was having a talk with our friend Lois Thomas, who's in charge of Career Source Brevard and the ARP 50 plus back to work. Because, if you're young, you're affected by the same problems, but you have a couple of options. You could, I'm going to work overtime if I can, or I'm going to take a second job. I mean, there's ways you can.
You could be a server, which is a heck of a lot of hard work, but depending on where you work, you can make great money in tips.
Yeah, you've got to increase your income somehow to cope with what's happening with the cost factor. And maybe for a certain number of seniors, maybe going back into the workforce is an option. And that's one of the nice things about what Lois Thomas does with Career Source is they literally help coach you back into the workforce. And they have a series of folks that are looking to hire seniors. And in fact, they've got a job fair coming up. I'll have to pull back the date, but they've got one coming up here at the Rusa Center here in Palm Bay in I believe it's next month, and we'll find the date and let you know, or give Nancy a call and we'll hunt it down for you. But the point is that could be an option for some, but for many that's not even remotely an option. There may be other things.
It's not either because of physical condition,
right?
Someone can't do the work involved, or many seniors that I talk with that are looking to get back in the workforce feel very intimidated and they feel very unhireable because they don't have basic computer skills. A lot of companies require online applications and interviews using Zoom technology that not every seniors are getting better, but not every senior has. So yeah, that's a tough one. But getting back into the workplace is an option for some for a little extra money. Getting back to Section 202 housing, I just wanted to wrap that piece up. Let people know that you have to be 62 years of age or older to live there.
Okay.
Yes, there's a 2 to 3 year wait list. So plan ahead. We did this for my father years ago. He's passed away in 2013. He lived till 90, but he was living in a regular apartment. And my sister and I realized we're keeping an eye on his savings and what his income. And my sister said, I think we should have Dad apply for housing for the elderly, which is the common name for Section 202 housing, because there is a wait list. So we put in way before he got too low on money. And before you knew it, he was in. So I highly encourage seniors to look into Section 202 housing if you need more information on that, so as not to take up the rest of our radio show on that. You can give me a holler at 321-473-7770. I highly encourage you to get on the waiting list. Apply, get on the waiting list, because once a senior is in that apartment, rent is based on income and assets. You could have a rent as low as $500 a month.
Wow.
I'm just shouting, depending. And it includes cable, basic cable, and it includes electric. So that saves them from 2 bills. So you can live there literally the rest of your life without being in fear of being priced out of the rental market.
So that's a real, that's a piece of advice. Joe has always talking about Joe Steckler, our president founder. He's always talked about the need to make that aging plan so that you have thought through some of the things that you might run across. Same thing as you do with a hurricane plan. You don't want the hurricane, but you're going to do your best to be prepared if one is coming your way. And we call it getting your ducks in a row. And that's half of the mission of helping seniors, trying to get people to think ahead a little bit, so that even though you might not anticipate that you need this, why would you not get on the waiting list if you know it's going to be 2 or 3 years, because everything could change in that amount of time, and you might find something else in between. And
absolutely, and that's what happens. So if they call you and say your apartment's ready in 2 years, and you don't want it, you've changed plans, you've moved up north to live with your family, you just say thank you, I don't want it anymore, and they go on to the next person.
You've helped the next person on the list, exactly. But at least you're it's like when the homeroom teacher used to do roll call. At least you go, I'm here, I'm waiting.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so that makes good sense. Let's talk about some of the things, because I've seen you do some really creative, come up with some really creative solutions where the situation looked kind of really doubtful for somebody just because of the economics. But it does seem like one area that seems to because we've said this before, even if somebody dumped money and said you could build every senior housing unit you wanted over the next couple of years, that's great, and that would be a wonderful solution, except that it's not going to help anybody until those units are ready for somebody to live in, and the problem goes on right now, even while we're on the radio. So, but I've seen you get really creative at helping folks. Sometimes you're talking to somebody who may be in danger of losing a property because their income doesn't work out, and you say, have you considered bringing in somebody to help with the expenses? And the reverse side is somebody says, well, this is I'm good with just a room, but I got to, and I can take care of myself, but I don't even know what's out there. And you've been able to help some people talk to each other and start to work things out.
Well, senior house sharing is becoming more and more common across the United States. This is one of those things that, where I alluded to earlier, it's a solution. It's a good solution. It's not necessarily a solution people want. If you live alone in a home and you're struggling to make ends meet because of that rising homeowners insurance, taxes, whatever, excuse me, people don't want to take a roommate in. They just don't want. And then you have seniors that want a place on their own, and I'll say, is house sharing something you would consider? Well, what's house sharing? House sharing, where you rent a room in a home, and you have other roommates, whether it's through a company that does house sharing or a private owner, and people are, oh, no, I want a place by myself. You have to be realistic about it. I'm not here to tell people how to live, but if you don't make enough money, if you make $1,200 in Social Security, you are not going to find a non-subsidized apartment or place to rent for that. You're just not.
Yeah.
So for a roof over your head, it might be something you want to suggest, and I suggest that to people a lot. Would you consider a house sharing situation? Well, I don't really want to, but in the meantime, get yourself on the list for Section 202 housing.
Right.
So you house share for 2 or 3 years, then you get called for your own apartment.
See, what you're talking about and what I like about it is I always have this expression that feels like it applies to this. I always used to say, we all know we're on a journey. So if you and I are sitting here in the radio studio and say, we need to go to Cincinnati, just, to pick it. So we've already decided that we need to go to Cincinnati. Now, what remains to be figured out is what are the tools that are going to get us there. Maybe it's an airplane. Maybe it's driving by car. And then if it's driving by car, is it going to be by freeway? Which freeway? And you make all those decisions, but at least you're clear on your destination. So the point is, once you've established your destination, you understand that the journey may not be always as comfortable as you want, but you know where you're trying to make it wind up. And to me, I see that as your point about the senior housing. You put yourself on that list because that could be your ultimate goal. And then you just manage whatever you have to manage to
in
get
the meantime.
there. Right.
Yeah. And I, a lot of life is like that. Think about people who go to college.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a poor college student. If you're lucky, your parents pay for it.
Yeah.
Or you take out a loan.
Yeah.
So you go into college for 4 years.
Right.
Poor. You got to figure out, how am I going to live? Dormitory. Right. Probably sharing it with someone, or house sharing.
Right.
Got to pay for books, got to pay for foods, got to pay for gas in my car. And during that 4 years, maybe I'm working on the side, making a little, but certainly not. So then I graduate. I've spent all this money on college, but I'm not making the big bucks of what my degree, because then you have to get into the workforce and then work your way up. It's kind of that in reverse.
Yeah.
You have to think about things. That's why we tell people, please develop an aging plan. If you're a couple and you live in your own home and you own it, and you're doing fine, and one of the spouses passes away, that's one half potentially of Social Security that goes away. Now, the surviving spouse does get the higher amount. I talk to people. There's people that don't know that, by the way.
Wow.
But if you get your income cut basically in half, now what? And I get calls like crazy for that. I was fine when my husband was alive, but he passed 2 years ago.
Right.
He paid all the bills.
Right.
I get widows that don't know how to pay the bills.
Wow.
They don't know how to navigate things, and now they don't have that Social Security, that double Social Security income. So planning is everything. I always say, absolutely have a plan A. Plan A is the best case scenario, what you hope for. Plan B is if things don't go the way you want. And then I always say, have a plan C.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, unfortunately, life does throw you curveballs, and you have to, sort of be on your feet and try to do the best you can with the different things that come along. But I sure do know, because I see it walked out every day. I watch our elder law attorneys that we're partnered with. I watch our Medicare experts that we're partner with. I watch the folks that we're partnered with on the assisted living. Every single one of these folks that you sit down and talk with, they say, I'd love to talk to you before there's a crisis, because we're going to have so many options.
Absolutely. And may I add something? Because Bill couldn't be here with us today. So I just want to put this out there for our listeners that we're looking forward to Bill instead of me, because I'm no attorney. But I will tell you this. If you own a home, if you have a bank account, you do not need to be a millionaire or be living on Oceanside to have an estate planning attorney. People think you have to be rich. So I imagine that part of what Bill would have talked about today, could he have been here with us, is to plan ahead when it comes to your estate.
Yeah.
People don't want to pay for a root canal, but you got it, right?
Yeah.
People don't want to shell out money for an attorney.
Right.
You are going to save yourself so much money in the future, in money and security, by seeking out a good elder care attorney if you have property, so that elder care attorney can help you plan for your home, if you plan to age in place at home, to protect your assets as much as possible. And only an attorney can do that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I was going to say some of the things that are also in the housing equation, depending on the case. I know you talked, for example, to widows of veterans who don't even know potentially that there may be some, they call it aid and attendance benefits and things that might help them afford things. I know Barbara McIntyre, who's a reverse mortgage expert. She's with Mutual of Omaha Reverse Mortgages. We talk a lot of times on the radio together about using the equity in the home to make things work. Like you may be squeezed out on a mortgage payment or the property taxes, and you could actually use the proceeds from a reverse mortgage to become, it's interesting. I keep learning this term, housing stable, meaning you can manage what's going on for you. And all these things that we've been talking about, the house sharing or maybe increasing your income if that's potentially an option through going back to work, or perhaps a reverse mortgage, or even if your medical situation requires, and this goes back to your point about Bill Johnson as an elder law attorney, for example, who can help you with Medicaid planning.
Because Medicaid planning's huge.
Yeah.
If you're married, especially, and you have one spouse who has a lot of medical needs, and the other spouse, needs to be able to stay, say one of the spouses needs to be placed in a nursing home or assisted living, and the other spouse is still living at home.
Exactly.
Talk to an elder care attorney about Medicaid planning and how you can protect your assets so that the remaining spouse at home is not destitute.
Yeah, this is something we talk about so long. We're always harping on this idea of making your aging plan, which we call just more for fun and to make it feel a little less intimidating. We call it helping you get your ducks in a row. So we have really been on a campaign about this, and we do monthly training seminars. For example, the last Monday of every month, we're out at Buena Vida Estates, and Kara Anderson with Simplifying Senior Living helps us put together these tremendous outreach programs. So like last month, there was a great panel discussion that featured folks who really have expertise on helping you live safely at home. The month before that, it was actually Bill Johnson, who we were just talking about. And this month, coming up on the 22nd, I think, because did we say it's Memorial Day on the 29th? I think.
Well, so we're in April. So it should be. It'll be the 24th.
The 24th, April 24th.
Yeah.
And we're actually talking about. I believe the topic this month is helping you find, if you're willing to talk about. Oh, sorry, it's financial planning.
Financial planning checklist.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And so we've got a financial planner, Liz Oros, with Edward Jones, who's going to come in and share some tips, because a lot of times how you manage your money also affects your quality of life in your senior years. And there is a difference in your earning years. You're busy trying to save and sock away for retirement. But even once you get to retirement, there's a lot of decisions you have to make about when you take Social Security and how you do things in a way that minimizes taxes. If you start pulling things out of pensions or other kind of savings plans, you want to be sure that you're not getting chewed up alive with all these taxes and then hurt yourself down the road when you might need this money. So by the way, if you're interested in that, it's another reason to give Nancy a call, because she can get you hooked up and give you the information on that.
And we do ask for RSVP, so we have enough seating for everyone, and it's free. And sometimes we have door prizes. It's free. There's a question and answer session. It is really a wonderful educational event geared to seniors.
Yeah, and
seniors of any age.
Yeah, and there's some wonderful sponsors who, if you're RSVP'd, will get you a lunch to take home with you. So you come there for the learning. It's 10:30 to 11:30. It's great. You have to get your RSVP in early because it's getting pretty full there. But then Chefs for Seniors, Chef Jillian always sends everybody that's RSVP'd home with a lunch thanks to some of the sponsors. So give Nancy a call about that at 321-473-7770. Now, we're basically at the end of the show, but I want to say that number one more time, or let you say it one more time, Nancy.
Yes, for housing, anything else. I don't always have a miracle solution, but I'm here to help direct you, and our phone number is 321-473-7770.
Thanks, Nancy, and we'll see you next week on the Helping Seniors radio program.